Right, welcome back to the channel and to this Tyranid painting tutorial. I'm going to show you how I get the watery effect on the Tyranids by painting up this exocrine. Obviously you've probably seen me Tyranids before. I normally add plenty of shells onto each of my creatures just to give kind of sea effect as well. So I'm going to talk you through the steps. It's very quick and easy to paint the Tyranids in the scheme that I use. And I'm also going to show you how to do the water effect base that I have on them all as well. So first thing is obviously built the model up and I've sprayed them with Army Painter Angel Green, it's called. It's nice and dark. I don't think it's quite the darkest one that they do. I think it's maybe the second darkest. But yeah, that's the colour that we go for as a base. What I do is the skin tones will all be sort of greens and the carapace is blue, with any bone or anything being black grey. So the first stage is apply a wash of Drakenhof Nightshade to all of the green areas. And I know what you're thinking, Drakenhof Nightshade is blue, but that's the idea. What I do is I kind of blend the blue of the chitin into the green of the skin by using different base colours and washes and glazes as well. So with this wash, literally just nice and thick. And what you find is with a wash, if you've used a wash before, it actually pulls into the recesses quite well and just brings out the raised areas, leaving them still quite light but leaving the deeper bits quite dark as well. Now obviously this is a big model, it is going to take me some time to get the wash across the entire of it, but if you just look at the head there, you can see straight away, especially at the back of the teeth there, it is kind of seeping into the cracks there. So because it's going to take me a while to do this, I'll pause the camera and come back once I've done that. Alright, so there we go. Once the Drakenhof Nightshade is dry, you can see that the skin tone is now quite a bit darker than the carapace. The next stage is a very heavy dry brush with Warpstone Glow. So the purpose of this is basically to bring the skin tone back up to a lighter level and just give it a very heavy dry brush. And what this does, like I said, it just picks up all the raised areas, leaving the crevices and everything still quite dark, but the richness of the Warpstone Glow combined with the finishing touches that we'll add later make it look like a very kind of rich green indeed. So just going over all the areas that I've already been over with the Drakenhof Nightshade, just bringing everything up that bit lighter. So I'll continue with the rest of the model and then we'll come back shortly. Right, so there we go, that is the next layer. We're going to highlight it up again by using the same technique but just applying it a little bit lighter, and this time we're using Moot Green. Moot Green is quite bright, especially compared to Warpstone Glow. However, when you're applying it quite lightly, it actually goes on quite well. That's maybe a little bit too thick. Just wipe a bit more off. And combined with the Warpstone Glow, I find that this gives quite a very nice shaded gradient. And there we go. So I'm going to do the rest of the model exactly like this, and we'll come back again. Right, so there we go. Now that that is all done, you can see that the green is indeed quite bright. I do like the effect of it. I think if you're painting orcs, that's probably how I would do it. However, this being sea-themed Tyranids, we want to dull it back down, and we want to tie it back in with the blue that we're going to be painting the carapace. So on top of all that green that we've just done, we're putting Guilliman's blue. Yes, it's blue, but when we do the blue carapace, we apply a green glaze, which in the end ties both them in quite nicely together. So the glaze seeps back into all the cracks and crevices, because you've got that bright, vibrant moot green underneath. It really shines through, but the blue glaze seeps into the cracks and gives it that nice kind of oily, watery shine. Maybe it's put a bit much on there, and we'll spread that out though. And there we go. So once again, I will continue with that and get back to you shortly. Right, so welcome back. Now that the Guilliman's glaze has dried, we're now going to start and paint the hide. So for the hide, I actually use Stegodon Scale Green. Now I know it's green, but it looks very blue when it goes on. And what I do is I essentially paint over the entire hide and then do the same technique again that we've done on the skin, but in different shades of blue as we go through. So because this is a base layer, it does go on quite well and nice and thick indeed, covering over the green. So what I do here, like I said, is I just paint all the chitin up. So this being quite a big monstrous creature, the hide is very easy indeed to get covered with a large brush. I also do down the front of his arms, for example, here, and obviously paint the shells as well as that. All my shells are part of the chitin. And then obviously the one down the tail as well. And with this, it doesn't matter if you're not exactly 100% neat, because the idea is that you kind of want the green and the blue to blend in together anyway, as you'll see when we get to some of the final stages. So I'll continue with that and then we'll come back shortly. Alright, so welcome back now that the Stegodon Scale Green has dried. And what we're going to do now is, obviously as you can see, that is quite blue compared to the rest of the model, even though the paint is labelled green. It's actually, we're going to green that up quite a bit using Coella Green shade. So as you can see, we're going to green up the blue with a green wash, and we blued up the green with a green wash. So, same way as we've applied all the other washes, literally just lather it on and it'll naturally seep into all the cracks. And straight away there, you can actually see, even on the camera, the green literally shining through straight away. And then what we do is we basically employ a similar technique in highlighting and shading the rest of the chitin as well, like what we did with all of the skin. So again, because it's quite a large model, obviously I don't want to sit and film me doing the same thing for 5 minutes at a time, so we'll come back to you once I've done that. Alright, so there we go. The Coella green shade has darkened down the blue quite considerably. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start highlighting it up in the same way that we highlighted the skin tone up. And the colour that we're going to be using is Sotek green. Lots of green, I know, but it's a very turquoisey blue, as was Stegodon green scale. So we're literally just going to dry brush the entire lot of the chitin here in the same way that we did the skin, but quite a heavy dry brush. Maybe it's a bit heavier than that. And just making sure that you get, I'd say, about half of the flat surfaces, and then obviously plenty of the pipes on the back of the chitin there. And the thing is with the shells as well, because they're spiraled, when you dry brush them, it does actually leave quite a lot of the detail in them as well. And as you can see, it does actually look quite blue indeed. So I'm going to press on with the rest of this, and then again we'll come back shortly. Right, so there we go, that one is now all complete. The next stage is to do the edge highlighting, and I'm going to use skink blue for this. It is a dry paint, so it does look quite nice when it goes on. It may look like it's too dry, but we've still got the final layer to go after that. So just apply a nice light dry brush to the edges, and as you can see, it really picks up those corners and edges as it did with the green. And it may look a little bit too bright, but like I said, we've still got a glaze to go on yet, so there's still plenty to tone it back down with as well. And again, this works really nice with the shells, for example, and the edges of all the chitin, because it really emphasizes the edge right along here. So there we go, that's what it's going to turn out like. I'll continue with that and we'll come back again shortly. Right, so here we go. Now that that's all been dry brushed up, we're going to now turn it more green to blend in with the rest of the skin. So for this we are going to apply a glaze of Waywatcher green. Because we used Gulliman's blue on the green skin down here, it made it turn quite blue, whereas this will make the chitin turn quite green when there's not dry bits of paint in it. And as you can see, that maybe not on the camera, but it does turn it all quite green indeed, and just blends, kind of brings the colours together between the blue and the green chitin as well, the green skin rather. There we go. So I'll do the rest of that and we'll come back again. Right, so there we go. Now that the Waywatcher green has all dried, you can see that there is quite a nice blend between the blue and the green chitin and skin, and I think it actually looks quite effective. It looks very sea-like indeed. The next bit that we're going to do is then pick out the third colour, which will be the purples, for any kind of fleshy, tongue, wet, veiny bits. And for this I'm going to use Zeros Purple. The main things that we'll be touching up with this is I do the eyes. If there is a tongue on the model or any tendrils hanging out the mouth like what the Lictors have, then I'll be painting that. But then I also paint the veins here on the side of the leg with Xeros purple as well. So it's a case of just looking around the model and finding out where these bits of veins actually are. And I think for the exocrine, I think I'm going to paint his gun purple as well. Like I said, I normally paint any other bits purple, so like the toxocrine, for example, all the tendrils on the toxocrine are purple as well. The Morlock, for example, his entire mouth is purple. So basically I want to do that on all the 4 legs and on the arms and everything as well, and then touch the eyes in the same colour. And there we go. And then I'm actually going to paint the entire gun barrel purple. I've thought about what colour I wanted to do this for a while, and I couldn't really settle. I didn't know whether I should do a black to tie in with the scythes and the other kind of hooves and things. I didn't know whether it would quite tie in or not, but I've opted for purple, and then I'm going to do some of the gun bits up here. I want to do them black instead. So I'll get the entire of that covered over in a few moments. But like I said, if you're just looking for the veins, there is a couple, normally about 3 on each arm or leg. So there's those few there. And then obviously on the front arm, it looks as though there's 2 there as well. Again, depending on the arm as well, you might want to paint the joints in between the elbow, so down there. There. So again, I'll get the rest of this one finished off, and we'll come back shortly. Right, so there we go, we've got all the purple done, all of the veins and the whole gun done. Now to apply a shade to the purple, I used Druchii Violet. So this stage doesn't take long at all. As you can see, we're nearly actually done with the model. There's only a couple of things left to do. But what we're doing here is basically, again, the same as what we've done with the blue and the green, and just painting the wash on so that it goes right in them recesses and picks out those veins. And then obviously with the gun, we'll just cover the full lot as well. So there we go, that's literally that side done. There's 1 or 2 underneath. And this literally, like with all the other washes, really forces them recesses and grooves to stand out. There you go. So with the gun on the front, literally just going to cover the full lot with the wash, nice and thick, because this is quite a big area. So you want to make sure it's getting right into all the cracks and crevices as well. Don't be afraid to put too much on, because even if you put too much in one area, you can literally spread it out between the rest of the areas. There we go. So all the deep recesses are now covered. It does look a little bit shiny at the moment, but that will dull down. And it's literally a case of waiting for that to dry, and then we'll highlight that one up. Alright, so welcome back. Now that the Druchii Violet has dried, the next stage is to highlight all the purples up, and for this I use Genestealer Purple. And I'm going to do it in exactly the same way that I've done all of the other pieces of the model, in the form of just adding a dry brush on there as well. So just wipe enough paint off so that it still appears quite dry on the tissue. Maybe need slightly more on there, but it is just picking up the highlights, as you can see. So with the gun, there we go, that's a bit better. Just going over all of the raised areas, making sure to pick it all out. That's one side. And then what I'm going to do is I'll take a finer brush, but do the same to each of the veins on the legs as well. So I'll get that done, and then we'll come back. Right, so there we go. We've highlighted all of the gun, and we've done the eyes and the veins on the sides as well. The next stage is to paint all the sides and the hooves. And for that, I'm going to use a Baden Black. Black is quite strong, but I do give it quite a heavy dry brush with the highlight shade. So on this, I'm going to be painting the sides here. I'm going to be doing all the hooves. And the thing about doing the black last is you can still leave sort of the veiny bits coming down the side of each of the hooves there as well. So I'll obviously do the other sides of those as well, and I'll also do a few other bits and pieces as well. So I will do the ones here on the front of the thigh, and then the rear hoof. And again with this one you can see kind of the overlap between the hoof and the skin itself. Moving to the front arm, again do the sides here. And the big scythe on there as well. Again, there's a little bit of a horn of bone sticking over the top here, so we can go around that. I'm also going to be doing underneath, so these horns here, we'll do them ones black. And there we go. When you do the horns, though, make sure you do get both sides. As you can see there, I haven't gotten the back side of the horns on the thigh plate. And then obviously the ones on the rear arm there as well. Just remember, obviously, when you're doing them, you're doing it at both sides. So here as well, need to do the back as well. The other piece that I'm going to be doing is I always do my teeth black as well. There's a tongue sticking out. I tend to do my tongues purple as well. So again with this one, if you watch the gum line as well, the gum line's quite rigid and jagged. so you can have it so that it still sticks out quite a lot. There we go. So I'll get all the rest of the hooves done and we're almost finished. Right, so there we go. All the black's been completed. We painted all of the spikes and the hooves and things as well. Apart from I've missed one piece there. I'll jump back and do that when I'm finishing off the highlights. To highlight the black, I use the Fang. It's a very bluey grey. And literally just going to dry brush each of the hooves and the spikes and everything, much the same way, like I said, that we've done the rest of the model. I do this quite heavy as I don't want it to be too black. Yeah, and because it's quite bluey grey, again, it still kind of ties in with the whole overall theme. And don't be frightened to go too heavy with this. Obviously you still want to see the black through it, but I don't like it being too black. And there we go. So I'll do the rest of that. I'll get a hoof under there touched up and we'll come back shortly. Right, so welcome back. There we go. That is the exocrine finished off. We've even highlighted teeth in the centre there. I've highlighted all of the sides and bones, and I think he looks quite nice. I think all the colours kind of blend in quite well. The purple just sticking out enough to accent him. So that's the exocrine finished. I'm quite happy with them. Very, very quickly to paint up, and even your small gribblies you can get painted up very, very quickly using this method as well. There's no great skill to the way that I paint my Tyranids up. You can, like I said, you can do it very, very quickly indeed. However, we still have the base to go, so let's take a look at how we do the water effect bases. Right, so for the base, it's going to be a little bit different how I make these, and yeah, what you're going to need is this stuff, a tube of decorator's cork. So what I've done is I've literally sliced the end off, and you need to squirt a load of it onto a flat solid surface. So I'm using an old box, and this is quite an easy method, but it can be a little bit messy if you don't get it quite right. I'm literally going to face plant the base in there, rub it round, and when I pull it off, that'll give the wave effect. So here we go. Make sure you spread it around a good bit, get it right up to all the edges of the base, and then what you should find is when you pull it back, so as you can see that needs a little bit more rubbing around due to not quite being on all the edges. Really dig it down into it, make sure that it's getting stuck in on all sides there, and try again. There we go. So as you can see, it stands up on edge, kind of like what waves would be. Now yes, it is very sloppy around the edges. It's easiest to clean this up though when it's actually set. So put that down to one side, and I'd recommend leaving this for about 48 hours because it does take a long time to set, and when you spray it, the paint keeps it soft, so you really need this to set before you even consider spraying it. So we'll leave that at one side, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Right, so here we go with the base. 48 hours later, it's all dried, and I've trimmed the edges just with a Stanley knife. So as you can see there, it's quite raised. You can see it looks very much like a wave effect. So the next stage, now that this is dry, is to get this sprayed up. So the spray that I use is Plasticoat. You can get this in Wilkinson's B&Q, and it's a gloss green. I'm not sure what the exact colour is. It's very, very turquoisey. So we'll get that sprayed up now. Now, for some reason, the paint doesn't like the decorator's caulk, so when it's dry, or rather when it's sprayed on, literally you're going to have to leave it again for about 24 to 48 hours for it to set properly. It's probably because it's gloss. Just make sure that you get a nice thick layer on and look right the way around the base, because you do have a lot of white gaps in there, and getting the base edge as well. There we go, that looks alright, and we'll get that adjusted up and highlighted and everything once it's all dry. So, see you in a couple of days. Right, so there we go, we've now sprayed the base up. It's had about 24-48 hours to dry, somewhere in the middle, because I've been to work and then come back. But yeah, as you can see, you can quite easily see all the ripples and everything in it now after it's been sprayed. And the next stage is to basically wash this with Drakenhof Nightshade. So pretty much the same technique that we applied to the body of the exocrine itself, just making sure that you get it in all the crevices. With this as well, it does go on quite thick, probably because of the paint being quite glossy, so it does mean that you can spread it out quite well. It does tend to pool quite a lot. If you spread it out well enough, you should find that it does cover and seep into all the cracks more than well enough. Just make sure you get it all in. Like I said, it does spread a bit differently to your normal minis. So just make sure that we cover all of the gaps and really paint it into the recesses there as well. If you do go over the edge, because it's a wash, you can literally just wipe it pretty much straight off as well. So like here for example, it's quite dark, but we can spread this that bit there out actually quite a lot. And really drag it round to the sides. Probably one more. There we go. So this is going to be quite a long time, but that needs to dry. Because it's going straight onto the gloss spray, it does take longer to dry as well. I'm actually going to stick it under my desk lamp to get it to dry out a little bit faster. Alternatively, you could maybe stick it out in the sun or outside in the fresh air, or even under your radiator, I suppose. So yeah, we'll come back once that is dried up. So there we go, now that that is dried off, we've only got two little bits left to do really, and the next bit is a dry brush of Sotek Green. This is the middle shade that we used on the carapace hide for the exocrine, and what I'm going to do is basically dry brush this just to bring it up. It doesn't have to be too heavy, but kind of halfway between heavy and light. So you want enough to get a good coverage, but not so that it absolutely covers everything. And you can be actually quite rough with this. So you still want, like I said, plenty of paint on, but not so much that it's going to detract from all the shades. And there we go. So now that the Sotek Green is on, the next stage is to add a white dry brush. I'm going to use this Winsor & Newton. I got this quite cheap when I first started out in the hobby, and I've actually used this for a lot of terrain, and I use it as the white for most of my bases. I think the GW on the pigment isn't quite thick enough for my liking, so this is the white that I've been using. You've seen it on all my bases, from my Dark Eldar, my terrain, and I've used it on the GW ruins and so forth as well. So we're going to be applying a white dry brush, but when we do it, we only want to kind of pick out the raised surfaces so it looks like the waves breaking rather than all of the base all together. So with this one you need to be a little bit more choosy with where you're going. So if you see there, I'm just picking up where the ridges are. And it's alright to get a bit more along the top, because obviously with the waves they would peak and break a little bit just before they hit the top. And then obviously along the back, again, quite a heavy dry brush along that kind of running peak that we've got in the centre there. And then just lighter as you come down all the sides. So what I'll do is I'll neaten that up and then we'll come back, but we're almost done now. Right, so there we go. I've finished the white dry brushing effect off, and as you can see it looks very much like a wave, apart from it's not shiny. So the final stage is going to be to spray this with some gloss lacquer. Let's take a look. So here we go, the final stage. I'm going to be using this Wilkinson's multi-surface clear gloss lacquer, and the reason it's gloss is because it looks like water. This is about £4.55 the last time I bought this. I've had this tin for ages though. So we'll get that sprayed up. And don't be frightened to go on really thick. Yes, it'll take time to dry, but it'll be very shiny. So there we go, we'll let that dry and we'll show you the finished piece once the exocrine's glued on. So there we go, there is the finished piece. Pretty basic, it's been pretty quick to get the exocrine painted up. And like I said earlier in the video, that's how I managed to get quite a lot of my Tyranids painted in one go. So, I hope that you agree, it does look quite watery. The blend between the green and the blue, and then obviously the base, you know, you've got the kind of grey sides. The purple just kind of accents it all out, I feel. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this painting tutorial. Please stay tuned, I will be doing more painting tutorials for each of the different armies as I go through, hoping to display different techniques of how I get my armies looking the way they do, for as little time and effort, but as effective as possible. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.